ISC West Public Relations Department, and we're doing a series of interviews here, bringing some of the best new products from the show this year to you, the YouTube viewer. And today I'm with Paul Bodell. He's the Vice President of IQinVision, and we're pleased to have him here. Thank you, Paul, for being.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with the company?
So I joined IQinVision in the beginning of 2002. So yeah, it's coming up on 9 years for me. I was the third employee since we went through the restructuring. So I've pretty much seen the growth of HD and Megapixel from its infancy.
So a lot of changes in those years, yeah.
Yeah.
What stands out in your mind as the biggest change?
It's the adoption of the technology in the last couple of years has been just fantastic. The rate at which people are embracing HD is extraordinary. We saw the vision obviously several years ago, and it took us a while. We had some early adopters, but it took, as with I think any new business or any new technology, it took a lot longer than we expected for it to catch up. But yeah, in the last 4 years, it's been fantastic for us.
Well, that's good to hear. So I hear you have some new products that you're launching at the show.
Yep.
And one is the IQ Alliance line.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Alliance is our line of domes. We have all the way from the Mini to the MX series. The Pro, the Alliance Pro, is our high-end product. So we've kind of taken our time coming out with the H.264 because we wanted to do it right. We didn't want to rush to market and come out with lower performance, lower profile type cameras. So all the Alliance Pro line cameras, they're all vandal resistant, environmental cameras. They're available from VGA up to 5 megapixel. And they're all main profile H.264. And the difference really is, there's different types of H.264 that are out there. Most of the cameras that you've seen in the last few years have been a baseline profile, which is similar to what you're seeing on YouTube video. When you get into surveillance applications, we feel it's important to have it at least main profile or higher. So we took a little bit longer to come out with it, but we think we have the best products out there. Which
is why Megapixel is so important. You really need that resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can have a megapixel camera that has the ability to capture images, but if it's not doing it at the kind of quality that the end users are looking for, why bother? So if you take a very high quality camera and use a lower quality compression like a baseline profile, you're not going to get the results that the people were expecting, that your end users were expecting.
And I guess with end users looking for surveillance and cameras to be doing much more than just taking pictures, it's used for litigation, and so that high resolution becomes even more important, I suspect.
Absolutely. Having enough pixels on target or enough pixels per foot to be able to recognize people or read license plates, that's really important. And it's important for the integrators and the architects and the engineers to specify it right. And it's important to understand that when you change settings in a camera, that you could potentially corrupt that data, or you can diminish the quality of it. So it's very important that the installers, the people involved with the technology, understand what the cause and effect of changing different settings or using different technology is.
Your primary customer is, or are, end users, integrators, dealers?
Well, end users are the customers.
Primarily,
right?
yeah.
That's who buys. That's ultimately who uses our products. But we sell through integrators and we sell through distribution as well. We don't actually sell to end users, but we support the heck out of the end users. So we feel like our channel partners help us get it to the end users, but ultimately the end users are the customers, and we want to make sure that they're pleased with the results of our products.
Always about the customer, right? So we talked about the megapixel camera dominated install recently, and where the cameras are 90% or even 100% megapixel, we talked about that. Has megapixel technology really become mainstream? I think you've said no, but I'd be curious to see if you can elaborate.
Yeah, people tend to talk about HD and megapixel differently. In essence, they're the same thing. All megapixel cameras are HD, and most HD cameras are megapixel. So, but I would say they are mainstream at this point. A year and a half ago, I would say we were typically we wouldn't do an install that was all megapixel. It might be 80% low resolution VGA cameras and 20% megapixel. But we've seen the inverse. We've seen 80, 90, 100%. Megapixel. We actually have a standard resolution line, and we did that just to round it off, so we didn't have to manufacture, or end users wanted to go 100% IQ. So we had to introduce a lower resolution product, but that was easy for us to do. Once you're experienced in the high res, it's easy to go downstream. Yeah, it's, I would equate the adoption rate of HD and megapixel to what you saw in the TV world. When it first came out, the early adopters who didn't mind spending $10,000 for a TV, impressed all their neighbors and friends. But now it's the norm. It's what's expected. In fact, you can't even go back in and buy a non-HD TV anymore. So
nor would you want to.
Right, exactly. And once people see it and they realize, gosh, why have I suffered for so long with low resolution, CCTV quality video when I can get this? Just like I can't go and I can't watch a game anymore on my kid's TV because it's still an old standard def, and I go, I can't believe I never even noticed how terrible this was. And you're seeing the same adoption, you're seeing the same transition in the security industry. But my expectation is, I've seen some reports that say by 2014, at least half of, I believe the statistic I saw, or the forecast was by 2014, half of all cameras would be HD. I don't think it's going to take that long.
I don't think so
either.
It'll
be a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the demand will be so great, and consumers are so much more informed on the technology. Absolutely, yeah.
And that's good. We like smart end users.
Yes, we do.
It makes our job easier.
And pushes you forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It pushes the industry forward as well.
Absolutely, agreed. Okay, so we've all heard, there's an app for that. Mm-hmm. And it's an off-use phrase, but can you tell us a little bit about you have sort of an app as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if you look at the history of the company, IQinVision, the name would hopefully you could interpret is all about intelligence in the camera. So since our very first camera in 1998, we've always had the ability to do clever things in the camera, whether it was on-camera motion detection. We were the first company to do that, to do on-camera recording. But recently, so while the market was evolving or emerging and we weren't selling a lot, we started looking at what other cool things that we can do on the cameras. We partnered with some video analytics companies who realized, gosh, the IQi cameras have enough processing for us to run analytics on the camera. So that was starting in maybe 2002, 2003, or when the analytics companies started to run their software on our cameras. Recently, we've introduced other applications like the ability to have the camera run as its own recorder, whether it's using our recording software or a third-party software. So we don't try to do everything ourselves. We like to lead the market or show them that, hey, you can do this, but if you want to develop your own app for our camera, we're open, we're non-proprietary, here's our SDK, here's the information that you need. We encourage you to develop your app and we'll work with you to try to get it to run on the camera. And as a result of that, more analytics companies have contacted us. There's several MVR companies that we're working closely with to make our integration much tighter. In addition, we're interfacing with access control companies where we created an app called IQ Access that it allows the cameras to basically multitask as a video intercom system. So you install the system as your video surveillance, but then your administrative staff can also use those cameras without impacting your surveillance system, can use those cameras simultaneously as your video intercom system. And there's a lot of other things that we're talking to companies now that we've made this platform available to them. We're seeing a lot of people coming out of the woodworks with cool ideas of things to run on the camera.
And you'll probably see many more.
Oh yeah, that's what we hope.
And,
and we're building this program and continually enhancing the documentation so it's easier and easier for these guys to develop their applications to the camera.
And the more they know and bring to you based on their own research and development, the more you improve the product and ultimately improve the industry and its abilities.
Sure. And if there's something really interesting to the broad market, it might become a standard feature somewhere down the road for us.
Right,
so
and or a standard in the industry.
Correct.
Perhaps,
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. You've been recognized for your involvement in pushing the industry, as we just talked about. Standards are sort of a hot topic right now. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of talk, and there's no one individual standard. Sure. And where do you think standards will be, and how quickly will a universal standard be adopted? If you had to speculate.
Sure, there's when you say standards, I think of two things. First, there's the interoperability standards. So those are ONVIV and PSIA, and we're compatible with both. So we knew that we weren't going to pick one horse to ride on, and it was easy enough for us to make our products compatible with both. So those are moving along. Certainly not at the pace we'd like to see them move along, but they are moving along, and eventually, I guess in broad terms, it's good for the industry. The less work that a recording software company has to do to connect to a camera and access all of its features, that's better for everyone. If you look at 35 years ago, when there were no standards, for instance, in connecting printers to computers. It was very cumbersome. Most people wouldn't do that by themselves. They'd hire somebody to come in and connect their if they wanted to have a number of different computers share a printer, it wasn't easy to do. Today, as you know, you can go buy a printer for $30 and plug it in and your PC recognizes it. I think when the surveillance gets to that stage, and when the security industry gets to the true plug-and-play state where everything is auto-recognized, as a PC industry is today, I think that's when you're going to see real growth in there. That's when you're going to see everybody, everywhere, deploying video systems in their homes, in their small offices, everywhere you have it, because it's a lot lower, lot less expensive at that point. So I see the interoperability standards being a great cause, but there's a lot of big companies involved, there's a lot of players, so they take quite a long time. The other standard that we've been trying to promote for a while is video quality. So, and that's something that still, there's no standard out there, and there's been some government bodies that are looking at establishing what is the minimum detail for forensic evidence. We've talked about pixels per foot, and having at least 40 or 50 or 60 pixels per foot as a starting line for it. So it's a very, very complex subject, but that shouldn't cause people to be afraid to try to tackle it. We've got to start somewhere. So we've been trying to promote for the last 5 years the concept that, when you architect a system, you have to design it for a minimum number of pixels per foot, and then build on top of that. And so we hope that gets some traction over the next couple of years, and we'll continue to promote it.
But there's no real body or standard body that tells you that. I think a lot of it is, at this point, is
right.
This is what we think will happen,
right?
Which makes it a little hard to develop, other than wanting to be the best in your particular market sector.
Right. If you look at the interoperability standards, OnViv is driven by Bosch, Sony, and Axis. So they have their interests in moving that along at a specific pace. On the other side, you've got the PSIA, which is a number of different manufacturers. So, but neither one of them, they're talking with some of their governing bodies, but nobody is, as far as I'm aware, nobody has officially endorsed it now and adopted one or the other. So that's why they take a little bit of time.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I think most of the industry feels that it would be better off if we could have vendor neutral.
Let's get on with it, people, please.
Well, if you look at other industries where that has to happen, eventually it does happen, but at what cost?
Hopefully the best player will win. Hopefully the standard that's best for the end users will be what ultimately wins.
Right. Well, thank you, Paul. So tell us, what is if people want to go and check out your product line, what is your URL? Where can they find you on the web?
The website is IQEYE.com, www.IQEYE.com. And the one thing I would encourage anybody who's specifically looking for how to design a system, if you go into our design tools section, we have a lot of generic calculators, so it's not manufacturer specific, but if you go into our design tool calculator section, you can find tools that will help you specify the right lenses, specify how many pixels per foot, what type of cameras, whether you need megapixel for this installation or you can go with lower resolution cameras. So there's a whole host of tools that we continue to develop. And the other thing that we're quite proud of is we developed a product selector, which helps you navigate. We have over 100 different base models of cameras, and so it's confusing. In the past, in the CCTV world, pretty much all cameras were created equal. So you picked your system and then you just pick camera A or camera B. Today it's a little bit more complicated. So we've invested quite a bit in creating our product selector that helps people navigate to the right product for their application.
Wow, that sounds like a really neat tool. Talk about an app, right?
Yeah,
Another
absolutely.
app. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure
nice
talking to you.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.